Om Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashabham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvignanti ye Bhurita Jana. Thy words of immortality, praised by sages, they are filled of divine glories. They are auspicious to hear, they destroy sin and also the threefold miseries of life. Those who receive and spread thy message, O Lord, are the greatest benefactors in the world. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, page 90. We contemplate on that immortal aspect called soul within us. Om, peace, peace, peace. The Brahma Sutra, one of the foundational texts of Advaita Vedanta, is called the Shariraka Sutras, the aphorisms of that which is embodied. Now, what is embodied? The soul, of course. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is but the modern version of those aphorisms, because it is directing one's attention to the soul. It concerns the soul's evolution from thinking itself as limited and mortal to its realization as infinite and immortal. It's the story told for the soul, of the soul, by the oversoul, as it's called, by the Paramatman. God descends on the earth to teach humanity, not cultural things, not the simple things that it's available everywhere, but these are deep teachings that awaken the soul. Page 90. The next day too was a holiday for M. M, as we know, he was a teacher, and there was a holiday, well, a school holiday. He arrived at Dakshineshwar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sri Ramakrishna was in his room. Narendra, as we know, the future Vivekananda, Bhavnath, he was also a very highly evolved soul. And Narendra and Bhavnath were great friends. And a few other devotees were sitting on a mat spread on the floor. They were all young men of 19 or 20. Seated on the small couch, Sri Ramakrishna was talking to them and smiling. You get the picture. There was the bigger bed in which he slept, and the smaller couch where he used to sit and instruct the devotees. No sooner had M entered the room Then the master laughed aloud and said to the boys, "There he comes again." They all joined in the laughter. M bowed low before him and took a seat. Before this, he had saluted the master with folded hands, like one with an English education. But that day he learned to fall down at the feet in orthodox Hindu fashion. Another cultural thing. Presently, the master explained the cause of his laughter to the devotees. He said, "A man once fed a peacock with a pill of opium at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The next day, exactly at the time, the peacock came back. It had felt the intoxication of the drug and returned just in time to have another dose." All laugh. So we all know how the mind gravitates towards a kind of an intoxication and wants more and more. And we get hooked in it. M was hooked. Not with opium, but with that spiritual talks and the insights that he had seen with Sri Ramakrishna. This is one of the first indications of spiritual life. People say, what is spiritual life? What are the indications? The first indication is this: there is a hankering for things spiritual. And if a person is kept away from it, that person will have withdrawal symptoms. Till he or she goes and gets that daily kind of spiritual inputs or dose, as they say. Later on, it does become a kind of an intoxicating, you can say, activity. People say, well, spiritual life is dry. Oh no, they don't know what it is. So it's more like a kind of intoxication. I remember a Swami talking about the Holy Mother, and he was so eloquent, and he was talking and talking and talking. And we didn't realize how the night had passed. And suddenly he stopped and looked at the watch. Hey, come on. And we all young. Come on. You need to go back to sleep and you got work to do in the morning. And then he says, this is how spiritual people get intoxicated. We don't even realize it. The passing of time, and we are so absorbed. So there is that hankering, spiritual hankering, and when it has sought an object, then it becomes a kind of intoxication. And M, he explains it. M thought this a very apt illustration. Even at home, he had been unable to banish the thought of Sri Ramakrishna for a moment, even for a moment. His mind was constantly at Dakshineshwar and had counted the minutes until he should go again. There it was. Why? It's the awakening of the soul. That's what happens when you go towards that, and then it's a kind of, you constantly wait and wait and wait till you can go to that same intoxicating factor. And then M starts describing what he is witnessing. In the meantime, the master was having great fun with the boys, treating them as if they were his most intimate friends. Peals of side-splitting laughter filled the room, as if it was a mart of joy. This, whole thing was a revelation to him. He thought, didn't I see him only yesterday, intoxicated with God? Wasn't he swimming then in the ocean of divine love, a sight I had never seen before? And today, the same person is behaving like an ordinary man. Wasn't it he who scolded me on the first day of my coming year? Didn't he admonish me, saying, and you are a man of knowledge? Wasn't it he who said to me that God with form is as true as God without form? Didn't he tell me that God alone is real and all else is illusory? Wasn't it he who advised me to live in the world unattached, like a maid servant in a rich man's house? He's regurgitating all those things that Sri Ramakrishna had instructed in his 3 visits. To see Sri Ramakrishna, and this was one of the things that was a hallmark in Sri Ramakrishna's life. He could be merry. He could make others laugh, and he himself laughed. He was extremely witty. He was extremely observant. And he used to use this power of observation to teach, as we have seen in all the parables, as well as to sometimes even to break people's pride or ego or whatever. But it was always done in fun and merriment. This was not just fun and merriment like we are used to. No. These things go in much deeper. When Swami Vivekananda was here in the West, and he was always laughing and joking, and he was very witty. And the other preachers and ministers were saying, how come? We are used to having religious people as grave, with long faces. So Swami Vivekananda said, that's not religion, that's dyspepsia. A religious or a spiritual life should be joyful. There is a great, you can say, feeling in people's mind. There's a kind of dichotomy. This is the secular life and this is the spiritual life. And both these compartments should not be mixed. No. Religious life is a life in its totality. In everything you do and say or think or laugh and joke, it is all religion. People have some funny ideas about religion. This is religious life in its widest spectrum. There is a verse in the Upanishad that says, who would breathe, who could live even for a moment if this bliss is absent in the space of the heart? So that bliss, that reality, that spirituality is joy. And with all things, Sri Ramakrishna had made spiritual life joyful. And he had cut down, broken down all those old kind of fossilized parameters about what religious life should be. No, it's all pain and all suffering and oh my God, it is all sorrow till you finally come down to the first vision and you've got to struggle. No, make it joyful. Why do you laugh and joke and talk? Just be natural. Spiritual life is being natural. So here we have Sri Ramakrishna saying, behaving just like the boys there, like a mart of joy. Sri Ramakrishna was having great fun with the young devotees. But one thing you must understand, he was always teaching. Even through fun and laughter, he was always teaching. And we see that his disciples, they also inculcated this, what they learned from Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna now and then glanced at M. He noticed that M sat in silence. The master said to Ramlal, Ramlal was his nephew, who was also one of the priests in that temple complex. He was also Sri Ramakrishna's, you can say, assistant, not assistant, attendant. So he says, you see, he is a little advanced in years and therefore somewhat serious. He sits quiet while the youngsters are making merry. M was then about 28 years old, imagine. At 28, and the boys were about 19 and 20 years old. But he had a family, he had his worries and cares, and he was a little of the philosophic bent of mind and contemplative. So, and he wasn't very well acquainted yet with the other devotees. Then immediately the conversation drifted to Hanuman, whose picture hung on the wall in the master's room. Here it is. Sri Ramakrishna said, just imagine Hanuman's state of mind. He didn't care for money, honor, creature comforts, or anything else. He longed only for God. This is extremely important. See, Sri Ramakrishna himself had undertaken a spiritual discipline likened to Hanuman's devotion. And during that period, he behaved like a grown-up monkey, as they say. Not in that sense. And the thought of Hanuman was so intense. He says, I even felt that tailbone, that coccyx, extend a few inches. The mind creates the body. And here, in that intense concentration, he's saying, I used to climb up the trees and sit down on the branches, and my eyes also took on that kind of restless look of the monkeys. So he did undergo that discipline. It's not meant for all. It's better to have Hanuman as an idea. In fact, Swami Vivekananda, in his lectures in India, he says, you have to keep now the ideal of Hanuman for the Indians. There he said. And there's no character so perfectly depicted in the Ramayana as Hanuman. So we think Hanuman, oh my God, he was well read in the Vedas. He had controlled his senses. He was a yogi. He was wise. He was strong. He had all the, you can see, yogic powers. I mean, the way he has been described in literature is amazing. That so perfect a character can ever exist. That was Hanuman. And then you see Swami Vivekananda himself preaching later the ideal of Hanuman. So he says, Sri Ramakrishna, when he was running away with the heavenly weapon that had been secreted in the crystal pillar, Mandodari began to tempt him with various fruits so that he might come down and drop the weapon. But he couldn't be tricked so easily. So the footnote here says, the story refers here as told in the Ramayana. Ravana had received a boon as a result of which he could be killed only by a particular celestial weapon. This weapon was concealed in a crystal pillar in his palace. And the idea is Hanuman, through his yogic insight, he understood and he climbed that pillar. He broke that crystal, you can say, covering, took that weapon. And Ravana's wife, Mandodari, she was another great woman. She thought he was just another monkey. He had taken the form of a monkey. And she was tempting him with fruits, saying, give this, you throw that, return that weapon, and I'll throw it. So he sang, am I in need of fruit? I have the fruit that makes this life fruitful indeed. Within my heart, the tree of Rama grows, bearing the salvation for its fruit. Under the wish-fulfilling tree of Rama do I sit at ease, plucking whatever fruit I will. But if you speak of fruit, no beggar I for common fruit. Behold, I go, leaving a bitter fruit for you. There it was. So Hanuman was responsible for carrying away the weapon that would eventually be used to kill Ravana. So that's the bitter fruit. As Sri Ramakrishna was singing the song, he went into samadhi. There. Again, the half-closed eyes and motionless body that one sees in his photograph. Just a minute before, the devotees had been making merry in his company. Now, all eyes were riveted on him. Thus, for the second time, M saw the master in samadhi. Now, this is what is called a bhava samadhi. When the mind becomes completely identifies with that object of meditation. In this case, that song evoked that particular spiritual attitude. And he goes into that bhava samadhi. Now, bhava samadhi happens because of the intensity of bhakti. Like Sri Ramakrishna says, first is nishtha, steadfastness. From this steadfastness comes bhakti, love for God. And then from bhakti comes bhava. So this bhava, what does bhava really mean? It has multiple meanings. And the older a word is, the more meanings are attached to it. Because people have been using this word for thousands and thousands of years, and this one of the words like is that bhava. So a host of meanings, sublime meanings get attached to this. So when the intensity of bhakti becomes crystallized, as it were, into a particular, you can say, mood, it becomes bhava. What happens in the state of bhava? You disappear. And the world disappears. So what happens to the you disappear? You merge in the object of meditation. In that particular, you can say, spiritual attitude. In this case, it was either for Hanuman or for Rama, because their family were all worshippers of Rama. And the world also disappears. When you disappear, the world will disappear. You don't have to practice that separately. That is the idea of making the world disappear. So as the subject and the object merge, what remains is only that state of bhava. And it becomes so intense. That is more real than this external world that we see around. And then you say, where is this world then? Well, it is here. You don't have to go somewhere else. Our mind is a part of that vast ocean of mind. So it's all here. It's only through deep contemplation, devotion, and concentration we can enter into this realm. So this whole world is just a small kind of bubble in a vast ocean of bhava. The world of becoming. So it is invisible to us. Yeah, it is invisible to you now. But if you intensely pray, become one-pointed. And as I said, as Sri Ramakrishna says, first is steadfastness. Steadfastness in what? To a spiritual ideal. And then comes bhakti. What is bhakti? It's love. Love for God. When that bhakti is directed to objects outside, it becomes this ordinary love that we know. And when that same love is directed within, it becomes bhava. And as it is said, Satu asmin parama prema rupa. What is the, you can say, how is it described, bhakti? It's a nature of supreme love, bliss for God. So Sri Ramakrishna again goes into that bhava samadhi there. Then he says, after a long time, the master came back to ordinary consciousness. His face lighted up with a smile and his body relaxed. His senses began to function in a normal way. He shed tears of joy as he repeated the holy name of Rama. So here it is. So his bhava samadhi was because he became one with Rama in that realm, spiritual realm. So when he came out of it, he uttered the name of Rama. M wondered whether this very saint was a person who for a few minutes earlier had been behaving like a child of 5. Yeah. What happened? So it's like, as I said, you enter into a room and you see there's a door at the end of the room. You open that door and you find a larger room there. You enter into it. And again, you check it out and then you see, oh, there's another door at the far end of that room. You open it out and you enter into a vaster space. Now, going from one room to another might take years. But for Sri Ramakrishna, he had already done 12 years of very intense spiritual practices. So he could move from one room to the other very easily. And that's why he could come back and, his face lighted up and his body relaxed and his senses started functioning. In that state, the body has very little consciousness in the state of bhava. And then slowly it starts coming. Because of prana, the vital forces, they kind of descend back into the body. And when the prana descends, the mind also descends. And when the mind descends, then all the nerves and the brain, etc., are again reactivated, and the body can function. It's extremely difficult, but to get into that state and come back so naturally. I have known people who have gone into that state, and it has taken them sometimes days to come back to this ordinary consciousness. Just as a kind of a footnote here, because people say, oh, you can go in there. Yeah, it needs a little practice, that's all. So you go there and come, and then during that time, after you've just descended from that state, you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't want to hear anything, you don't want to see anything, you don't want to eat anything, you can't sleep. All the things that normally would do, you stop doing it, till the mind then gradually starts descending down into your body and you start functioning normally. But like I said, Sri Ramakrishna could transition from one state to the other very quickly. That shows how natural it was for him. Then he brings up another conversation. See there. The master said to Narendra and M, I should like to hear you speak and argue in English. They both laughed, but they continued to talk in their mother tongue, Matribhasha, that is in Bengali. It was impossible for M to argue any more before the master. Though Sri Ramakrishna insisted, they did not talk in English. You know, it was during, he used to teach English also, but there is a kind of a diffidence now, because Sri Ramakrishna is there. And Sri Ramakrishna used to use such things just to break some of these old, you can say, structures in the person's mind. So, and he just wanted to have a little kind of fun also. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, all the devotees except Narendra and M took leave of the master. As M was walking in the temple garden, he suddenly came across the master talking to Narendra on the bank of the goose pond. It's called a Haspuko. There was a small kind of pond out there. Sri Ramakrishna said to Narendra, look here, come a little more often. You are a newcomer. On first acquaintance, people visit each other quite often, as in the case with a lover and his sweetheart. Narendra and M laugh. So please come, won't you? When Narendra would come, Sri Ramakrishna couldn't even utter his whole name. He said, instead of Narendra, he said he could go up to na, and then used to go into, again, samadhi. He was so attached to, spiritually attached to Swami Vivekananda, because he waited for more than 20 years for him. And not waited in the sense, not just waited, saying somehow during the day he could contain himself, but in the evenings he used to go to the rooftop of that. There was a kind of a small house where the owners used to come and live there, the kuti badi, they say. And he's saying, he used to weep. He's saying, where are you, my children? I'm waiting for you. And he's saying, I felt as if my heart being wrung. And he should take that small kind of hand towel he used to have and he used to wring it like this. I used to feel my heart being wrung like this. Imagine Sri Ramakrishna for more than 20 years waiting for his disciples like Narendra to come. And when he first saw him, he rushed towards him. And he wanted to give all his realizations to him immediately. But then, as we've seen, even Swami Vivekananda wasn't even ready for some of the realization. And then Sri Ram said, okay, wait, it will come in time. And later, Sri Ramakrishna himself jokes about it. Oh, when I gave everything, he's saying, I've got my father at home, and said, what are you doing to me? So it was not just an ordinary love, because he knew this was his future voice in the world. Narendra, a member of the Brahmo Samaj, was very particular about his promises. He said with a smile, yes, sir, I shall try. He never said, okay, I'll come. He said, I will try. Because Sri Ramakrishna used to praise him because he stuck to truth. He adhered to truth. For instance, one time, Sri Ramakrishna was in his room and with all the devotees. And one devotee who came in is saying, you see, Narendra is standing out near the gate outside. So why is he waiting outside? He put on his slippers and went walking quickly to the gate. And he was delighted. Were you standing there? Come inside. No, I said I'll come at 3 o'clock. It's not at 3 o'clock. And Sri Ramakrishna was so delighted. And they both kept on talking there till 3 o'clock. And then they both came in, it was 3 o'clock. He was a stickler for truth. So he was careful, not only because he was a member of the Brahmo Samaj. This was his attitude, his character rather. When they were returning to the master's room, Sri Ramakrishna said to M, when peasants go to market to buy bullocks for their plows, they can easily tell the good from the bad by touching their tails. On being touched there, some meekly lie down on the ground. Peasants recognize that these are without mettle and so reject them. They select only those bullocks that frisk about and show spirit when their tails are touched. Narendra is like a bullock of this latter class. He is full of spirit within. There he said. This is essential for spiritual life. People think, oh, you've got to be soft and so kind of sweet. At times, yeah, you've got to be sweet, but then here he says, the master smiled as he said and continued, there are some people who have no grit whatsoever. They are like flattened rice soaked in milk, soft and mushy, no inner strength. So you get this idea. It's a beautiful way he is teaching all of us. You have to have grit. You have to have inner strength. You have to have that kind of persistence. When you know that it might be a few years or decades even till you get that realization, do you have that kind of stamina, that endurance to persist? A little obstruction comes and that flattens us. And we go and pray, oh my God, I've got a headache, I've got this. You're trying to stay away from this. But those who are of this class, they will persist in heat or cold and pain or pleasure and sickness or health. They will go about it. So that's the example Sri Ramakrishna has given. You touch that tail and the other guys will sit down. Because in those days, they used to yoke bullocks to the plow. And the bullocks, if they are kind of, they've got to be, you can say, trained and broken, as they say. So if you have a weak, you can say, bullock, there you got it. So he's saying, like flattened rice, there's a type, poha they say. They flatten rice, and it's a delicacy there, but then it is soft and mushy. This is what spiritual life does for us. You've seen one side, the laughter and the joy and the merriment, but at the inside there's that mind that is strong. Swami Vivekananda one time, he says, when any trouble or any even death, if anything approaches me, I become as hard as this. He takes two pebbles from the stream and knocks them together, hard as this. So the fun and the merriment, etc., yes, it's natural. These are the outer kind of doors of the inner side of the mind, which is like this, hard, concentrated, and yet, of course, imbued with purity and truth. We stop here for today and take these questions. So, to recapitulate, one thing, Sri Ramakrishna was, in the first instance, he was laughing and joking, and suddenly he goes back and gets into the samadhi. And knowing the ease in which he could go in and come out again is something that has baffled even those who have studied the scriptures on samadhi. Yes, he has broken all parameters of what samadhi and what is coming down means. Okay. Om, peace, peace, peace. Why does Hanuman take the form of a monkey? He could take the form of anything he wanted. At times, he could make himself tiny. At times, he could make himself as big as a mountain. He had those powers. Like I said, he had the power, the 8 yogic powers, as well as the 9, you can say, spiritual treasures. As I say, he was a complete, you can say, yogi, a complete, you can say. I mean, he was complete in every aspect. He could morph himself into any form he liked. And we believe he is still in this world with us. I've heard of so many instances where people have seen Hanuman. There is no doubt. There was a time when I used to criticize the simple people in the rural India. I said, these people have not yet risen up from that mythological age to Vedanta. And I had a great idea of Vedanta and this, and it's going to change civilization and this and that. Saying these people are stuck in old superstitions and this, because everywhere you go, you have temples of Hanuman. Everywhere. And later I realized how wrong I was. So, say, if he can lead you to the vision of God very easily. And we have seen it in the case of even Tulsidas Ramayana. The whole, he got a vision of Rama and started writing only after he got the vision of Rama through Hanuman. It might seem kind of strange. I'll give you an instance. I mean, it's in the Ramakrishna Vivekananda literature. In Benares, what you call Varanasi, there used to be Ram Nam sung. If those who have gone to Benares, as you enter the gate on the right-hand side, there is that office block. And in that office block, there was no office then. Then they used to sing Ram Nam. And Raja Maharaj has specifically instructed that all centers should have a Ram Nam there. So we have Ram Nam 2 times a month, first and third Sundays. However, and Ram Nam used to be sung there. And when after the singing, everybody has left, a very old man with great difficulty. He used to get up and walk with, halting steps. And he used to be there and nobody used to bother. Raja Maharaj is saying, that is Hanuman. He comes in this, wherever the name of Rama is sung, there it is. So why does he can take any forms? So he comes as the old man. And in India, in many places, there's a belief. We look around if to see any old-looking gentleman sitting down, maybe a Hanuman. So, yeah, I have learned my lessons the hard way. I don't now joke about it. How old was Sri Ramakrishna when he knew about his mission? In the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna divine play, these people are born with the knowledge that they have a mission. But properly speaking, after he had finished his first 4 years of his spiritual practice, sadhana, he realized, as it is described in the book by Swami Nikhilananda, that he had a mission, that he was an avatar. So he was, how old? 16, 20, about 24, 25, something like that. That's the time. But you must understand, he understood the details of it. But they are always born with that knowledge that they have a mission in this world. Okay. Okay. Do we have anyways? Okay. Then we can stop here. Fascinating. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.